Today, we're going to talk about the 3 pitfalls for real estate investors. And these pitfalls are really the ones that can take away all your profit, right?
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello, this is Jennifer J. Hammond, and this is Jason Avery. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited we have Jason here today. He is a serial entrepreneur, and I love it because it's the 3 C's. He's in construction. He owns his own construction company. He owns his own cabinet company, and he's a coach for all these guys. And the guy, everybody needs a coach. Well, I don't care what business you're in, but especially in the trades, I want to say all of the different trades, because construction people, those numbers go flying out the window and people don't know why all of a sudden this is costing so much more money. So welcome, Jason.
Well, I'm so glad to be here. I'm becoming a repeat offender, aren't I?
You are, and I love it. You're becoming one of my favorite guests because, again, you are so passionate about educating. And again, like today, we're going to talk about the 3 pitfalls for real estate investors. And these pitfalls are really the ones that can take away all your profit, right?
These are mistakes that I have seen repeated, and so let's try to prevent them from being repeated again. Let's try and save somebody some money today, or save them a very big heartache. Here in Florida especially, we've got flood zones, right? And so we've just had a couple hurricanes this year that were threatening us, and it's a really scary topic. We've got the second largest amount of damage down by Ian in the Naples area as ever reported. So, flood zones is a harsh topic already, and it's probably going to get harsher as we go. The main thing that investors need to understand when they're buying a piece of real estate that is located inside the flood zone, we are falling under the jurisdiction of FEMA. And FEMA, before you can permit, has set in some rules, because they don't want somebody taking a little piece of junk and putting in hundreds of thousands of dollars, then it gets wiped away by the flood, and now they don't have flood insurance. FEMA's got to kick in money. They don't want that scenario. So they just assume you bulldoze it, build up a new home that's outside of the floodplain. And some people kind of do that. They just take the whole roof off, build up the structure a little higher. The lower level becomes a garage, and then they build their living above. But for those who are trying to keep it on the ground floor, and if it's inside the flood zone, there's what they call the 50-50 rule. And if you can't spend more than 50% of the value of the structure, not the real estate as a whole, not the pool, the accessory dwellings, not that pretty view on the water that made it a $600, $800 million piece of real estate. The structure is $150,000, $200,000 of that transaction. And so if you can only improve up to 50% of that, it's kind of limiting. You can do a lot with a $75,000 to $100,000 budget in 1 or 2 rooms. You're not going to tackle the whole house. What you got to really consider is, what if there's major plumbing issues? We have lots of rotting cast iron here in Florida. What if you had to trench and plumb everything and then put all your floors back together? That could chew up 2/3 of your allowance that you had. Now you get to remodel a bathroom. And the rules, the way they work, are a little bit divided by municipality. There's different interpretations of this rule. Right. So some places you can wait 12 months and then you can apply for a new permit. Some places you can apply for a new permit right after you close the first permit. But in all these areas, phasing is not allowed. Now, mind you, everybody's doing it anyway. You just don't tell the building department what you plan on doing next. That's an afterthought. But it's not allowed. And if they sense that that's what you're doing, it's going to be a challenge in getting a permit. And we're already challenged in getting a permit, as we have to fill out literally a booklet about 6-8 pages long, calling out every light fixture, every plumbing fixture. Every detail has to have a value. Appliances they're going to buy. It all has to be calculated in, and it cannot exceed that 50%. Some wiggle room in there when it comes to permit fees or demo fees, and that's get together with an expert if you need help. But just something to be aware of. So you could be limited on how much you can approve. That's one of the first pitfalls that I see happening.
And that's a really important one, because again, if you look at the numbers, like you were just saying with the 150, if it's 50% of 150 and it's a $5 million property, those numbers don't jive.
Next big pitfall. Where is this thing located? Is it inside a historical district? Is this a historical home? And this relates to pitfall number 2 and 3. The first side of number 2 is that you're dealing with the historical district, which is the same as dealing with like an HOA, whether you're dealing with an HOA in a nice community or an HOA inside a condominium high rise. And I'll just touch on that too. But the idea is that dealing with an extra set of rules beyond the building department. You have to get approved by the building department for the structural and hurricane integrity, et cetera. But you also have to get approved on maintaining that historical look using the same look-alike material. And now there's a lot of, you got to submit your plan separately and be approved. When it comes to doing those old homes, you got to consider lead pipes that used to exist. Don't want those anymore. You might be replumbing the whole house. Cast iron, again, could be rotting and collapsing. You might be replacing all the PVC down below. Now, also, you've got lead wires that might be running into a fuse box. That stuff's all old school. You got to, update. You need breakers. You need to have wires that have a ground on them. You got to have, you don't want the aluminum copper these days because otherwise it's a fire hazard. What about the wall spacing? If they're not framed, if they're framed 24 inches apart, where now they need to be 16. 2x4s used to be 2x4. Now today they're 1.5 inches by 3.5. So everything's a little different. You used to have wire lap and plaster. Now you got drywall. So knowing what these extra expenses may be in demolition, when you touch the plaster and it cracks the whole wall apart, it's very important talking to a contractor that's had the experience of working with it. And so that's what the two sides of the historical pitfall is. And then now when you get into the condos, technically, when there's more than 3 of them attached together, commercial building. And a commercial building permit, you got to start by having an asbestos survey before you can remove anything. And then you have to have all kinds of additional plans, which include life safety, fire sprinklers, fire alarms, all the stuff that goes along with a commercial building. Double layers of drywall for firewalls. And because you got to separate your compartment from the compartments next to you. If you're kept on fire, you can't burn down the whole building. This is, it matters. So all these things you might not be considering when you thought, hey, I'm just going to buy that condo, throw some decorations into it, turn around and flip it. It might not be as easy as what you think. Make sure that you're speaking to professionals.
So as you were talking about pitfall number 3, I wanted to touch, because I just had a real estate investor talk to me about this, and I was just shocked that she had never heard of asbestos. I was like,
asbestos. Most commonly, we'll find old asbestos shingle siding on the side of buildings. That's very common. If you're going to demolition it, you have to remediate with a remediation qualified company. If not otherwise, if you can cover over it, put a new sheet of plywood over the top and just bury it, there's ways that are acceptable, but you got to know what you're getting into. When it comes to the asbestos survey, even in a condo, sometimes popcorn they sprayed on the ceiling might have had asbestos in that product.
Right.
They glued the floor down. The floor glue could have potentially had asbestos in the glue. There's still products today on the shelves in the box stores that have some asbestos in them. There legit is. But you have to test for it each item that's going to be torn out. And so you start with it's like $150 it costs just to get the first sample, and then another $150 to $200 it costs for every sample after that for each item you plan on tearing out that you got to test.
And so
unless the building has had the entire building certified, which some of them have done now, but not many of them.
And quickly, just for those people who have never heard the word asbestos, tell people what it is.
It's a chemical product. You hear it on the news all day long with the lawyers that are trying to create the lawsuits that potentially causes cancer. And exposure to asbestos causes cancer. So, you hear it on the news every other day. Some lawyers add about, you in the field working here, and you could have been exposed to that chemical, have this in it. That's the same concept.
And I was going to say, those are like the lead-based paint, asbestos. Those are ones you can go to FHA. You can go to the government websites and you can look at the EPA. I'm sorry, that was what I was thinking of.
Correct.
EPA.gov, and you can find out about asbestos and lead-based paint. These are ones that, again, are huge pitfalls, and they can cost you a huge amount of money.
The lead paint one you just mentioned, the lead paint one, literally, if you get caught, or I believe it's that, or I'm thinking of the asbestos. If you don't do the asbestos survey, you get caught. It could be up to $100,000 fine. And they'll scare you with the big dollars. They might slap you with a $10,000 penalty and get you back on track. But it literally could be up to $100,000. So.
That's the reason I wanted to talk about the pitfalls that these are just some of the huge pitfalls to take away all of your profit when you're a real estate investor. So before, I know we're about out of time, but the last thing I wanted you to talk about really quickly before we hop off of this is you have created a spreadsheet to help those
Yes.
who, especially I want to say the newbies, but also even the contractors that keep messing this up. So talk about the spreadsheet you created.
So, and this is not some software that I try and peddle around town. This is a legit tool that I created for my own construction company, which is completing about $5.5 million worth of projects this year, about 100 projects in the ground. And it's just pricing and anytime I ever had to reach out to a subcontractor and get a bid, I made sure to save my numbers. And then I've, over the year, perfected my numbers to make sure that I pay above average in any area of the industry and any, sector of it. And so I know what the job to cost, including the cost of supervision. And so in my consulting world, to a contractor who's new, who's still like getting the subs, come on out, give them bids for every project before you get an estimate. I'm doing my introductory consulting for $500. I'm going to just give you my spreadsheet. We're going to put your logo on the top, and I'm going to teach you for 2 hours how to use it. And then you just plug and play. I need 100 feet of this, 200 feet of that, but it's all in there so you don't forget anything. And you make sure you organize it so you can understand it and then manage the costs as you go. The idea is you want to come in on time and on budget. So,
well, on time and on budget, but also I love the fact that in there, you've also talked about so that if you can look at it, if people start changing things, again, one of the biggest shocks for the homeowner when they hire a contractor is, I can't believe, you're charging me so much money for a change order. And those kind of surprises when you have a spreadsheet, when you have a tool like that, it can just change everything, because once you are expecting and you understand what is that going to cost me. So you understand, if you change your mind, you understand the consequences and the price of changing your mind.
That's just it. Some people, try to give you bits and pieces of the truth because they're trying to sway you to hire them, and they'll give you the rest of the information later in spoonfuls. That's usually a very uncomfortable way to do business with contractors for you and them. They just haven't realized it yet. There's a better way. And reality is that I like to make sure that everything's spelled out up front, and you get it or you don't get it, but at least you can make the decisions along the way that influence that budget. It's a good way to do construction. So if anybody needs help with construction, it's averyconstruction.com. If you want budget consulting help, just me as a coach, you how to do this on your own, visit construct-6.com. And
that was perfect. I was just going to ask you, how do the people get in touch with you? So that was perfect. Perfect. And as you know, I like to end every one of the episodes with the yay, so that we can always bring the silver lining to everything we're doing. Are you ready to say yay?
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Yay!